company building through customer funding, that's where it's like, okay, great. Like I need to have a certain level of audience to sell my product to it in sort of the phase one. What does that look like? How big is it? You know what I mean? Like my product might not be, like, say you're a platform that you want to have a lot of bells and whistles. You're like, okay, well, like, what is the whistle that I can begin selling to somebody, right? To get that momentum to unlock phase two, which is like the bell. And then who does that broaden the aperture of who I can sell to, and to kind of think about it in more of a door unlocking manner versus like going completely horizontal from the first day. Right. And I think that strategy and approach can be really valuable to kind of creating an efficient kind of go to market motion.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where company culture is the invisible hand behind every big win, tough pivot, and crazy idea that somehow changed everything. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. Out B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. How strong is your startup story? And is anyone outside your team actually hearing it? Come to think of it, is your team actually hearing it? In a noisy market where attention spans are shrinking by the second, building a great product isn't enough. If your messaging is confusing, inconsistent, or buried under layers of jargon, you're not just losing opportunities, you're handing them over to competitors. In this episode, we dig into the real art of startup marketing with a focus on cohesive storytelling. The kind where every touch point, every team member, and every piece of content works together to tell a story that actually resonates with your ideal clients. You'll hear why founders must lead this alignment from the top and why understanding your minimal viable audience is far more powerful than shouting into the void. And of course, how to fix the RevOps debt that quietly cripples scaling efforts before they even get off the ground. We'll also unpack why fancy buzzwords and corporate jargon are killing your brand's connection with real humans, and how a clear, simple message rooted in real world problems can be your superpower in a crowded space. If you're ready to rethink how your brand communicates, align your team around a single compelling vision, and craft marketing that actually moves people instead of putting them to sleep, then this episode is for you. Let's jump in. On Tuesday, we had a double founder episode with two awesome people, Harry Masters and Udav Mehra from Inflection Group, diving deep into how startups can build elite go-to-market leadership teams that actually scale revenue and not just bloat headcount. Our expert guest last week, Phil McGilvray, the entrepreneur turned cash flow strategist, showed us how simplifying your financial management can unlock sustainable profitability and help founders finally build businesses they love, not fear, and make a lot of financial sense too. If you missed either episode, go back and check those two out. My guest today is Adam Coughlin, co-founder, CMO, and managing partner at York IE, where he helps startups master foundational messaging, go-to-market strategy, and brand storytelling that fuels real growth. With roots as an award-winning journalist and deep experience leading communications at Oracle, Adam brings a rare blend of narrative expertise and operational execution. His passion? Helping founders find their voice, align their teams, and turn clear messaging into a competitive weapon in today's crowded red ocean marketplace. Welcome, Adam Coughlin. Hey, Adam, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Well, you've led marketing at everything from early stage startups to a company everybody knows, Oracle. And now you guide dozens of founders through go-to-marketing and messaging. What is it that founders need to get right about their message?
Yeah, I think in a ever evolving marketing landscape, I think where tools are popping up new every single day, right? And the
Yes.
actual throughput of putting stuff out there is almost no barrier to entry. having a message that resonates and telling a story that impacts people is more important than ever. And so I think about that through a few things, which is like, one, I think it's really important for companies to start by taking a market in approach to company building as opposed to a product out approach. A lot of times somebody will have a problem, they solve it, and that's why they start a company, and then they assume everybody else will have that, will want that, right? But the
Right.
reality is like nobody is building a company in a vacuum. You are part of both a market and competitive landscape, which is an organism that is always changing. And so understanding where you play in that and positioning yourself around a lot of other things is a really fundamental lens of which to view your messaging and positioning, as opposed to thinking you're the only person that's doing this or has ever done this.
And the market is changing maybe faster than ever right now. So it's hard to keep up. And a lot of noise, just like you said, no barrier to entry. Anybody can say anything and really blow it up big, even just put some advertising dollars behind it, and that message is out there.
And I think that's why it's so important to take that market in approach, because I think
Yeah.
in doing that, you begin to put yourself into the shoes of your potential customers, right? I've worked with a lot of companies and I've been victim to it myself where, oh, I'm creating a category. I have these buzzwords that are so meaningful to me, but are completely irrelevant to anybody outside of my
Yeah.
own walls, right? And when you take yourself out of your own perspective and begin to think about the customer and how is the customer part of your story, and are you speaking to them in the way that they understand, it's going to have you create a lot more opportunity to actually resonate. Because to our point about the influx and the noise, and like literally human beings have a shorter attention span than goldfish. And so if you're talking about something like in a word that you use that nobody else does, gone. You've already lost that opportunity.
Right.
And so I think that perspective is really important for companies to take. And it's going to be, if your customer is always the hero of your story, no matter what, you're going to be in a good spot. And so I think that's a great place to start.
I think that does happen a lot where founders will create their own language or their own words around their solution. And they think it makes it cutting edge, or they're a category creator, but it doesn't fit in the consumer's mind or their prospect's mind. They don't have a box to put it in. I don't understand what that is. And so it's just a no. And the confused mind doesn't buy. What is it that makes messaging so hard, especially for early stage founders? And why do they default to jargon or mimic competitors?
So it's a couple of things. This is why, like, when we begin an engagement with a company, we always start with our messaging hierarchy. And the hierarchy is a really important part because we start with the vision and the mission, and then we work our way down to like value prop and differentiators and things like that. The reason that's important is because, to your point, one of the reasons that like a lot of startups use buzzwords or want to create a category is that a startup is starting because they feel like there is a problem with the status quo and something needs to
Right.
be changed. And so that's why like you start a company with your vision and your mission, and you know what, like that should always be there. The reason for starting it is very known. How you're going to execute on that vision is going to continuously like evolve as you have more customer conversations, as you get feedback on the product, on all of those different things. So like a lot of times, like from a messaging standpoint, people go immediately into speeds and feeds. That's going to change. And so then what happens as a startup is you said this, oh, and then you had a call when somebody like this resonated with something else. So then you say that, and now you've said everything, but you're not known for anything. So that's why like I love to
Mm.
start with the vision and the mission, because that's going to be consistent and buy you the time to begin to build association, to build brand credibility around something, while the specifics continue to evolve and fine tune. And then once they've evolved and fine tuned, you can be much more confident in talking about them because you have proof points, you have case studies, you have data behind them. And then that's why you can then begin to go more comfortably through some of the different channels of marketing into kind of earned and paid, because some of the exploration, some of the discovery of that messaging has been done and now a little bit more codified.
That's good. I think that you're right. A lot of founders really do focus on product and features and want to jump straight to that because they're excited about it. They created this cool thing, and not necessarily on market momentum or that market out or market in, focusing on the market first and then getting to the product. What do they miss by taking the product approach?
I think a couple of things too is when I talk about this is particularly important for founders in the early stage is that if you're starting with the product, the reality is that a startup by definition is a newborn. And so there is less of a network effect to that, right? Whereas
Hmm,
that's why like it is often synonymous between the founder and the startup. And so if that's the case, then start with your own personal network and your own personal brand and kind of telling the story about like why you're doing what you're doing because you're already telling it to like theoretically not a lot of babies are starting companies. And so as adults, we have a personal network, right? We have
right.
some audience of which to speak to, right? My co-founder and our CTO, Mike Vayu, as a technical person, always talks about minimal viable audience more than even minimal viable product. Because like at the end of the day, you have to sell the thing to somebody and that something
Right.
has to exist, right? And as a person, as a founder, you have an audience already to begin with that you could begin workshopping off of. If you go right to the product, you've also, I think, just gone further down. And again, I think understanding like that successful companies happen because of the ecosystem, right? Not
Mm,
just the
yeah.
product. So that's like your audience, that's the investors, that's your employees, that's all of these other valuable things that you've sort of enterprise value you've created beyond just the product. And so I think it's more of just like a worldview perspective. And it allows you to like more holistically look at the company that you're building and position yourself in a way that like products are changing so fast, things that are innovative. We did a CTO roundtable a couple of weeks ago, and one of the big concerns was just like, as a product person, I'm working on something that I know may be antiquated by the time I even bring it to market with the way of which the speed is. And so I think taking that holistic approach gives you a little bit more of a moat and some defensibility, of which obviously then the product plays a massive role. You know what I mean? It allows you to be thinking about the problems that are being solved. And then I think that gives you the flexibility to solve it in different ways as you continue to grow.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, how does a story affect go to market? How does that drive go to market success across sales, across marketing, and fundraising? A lot of companies are looking to do that. How does that story span all of those and bring them together?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, and this is particularly true of even like software and applications and product and technical stuff, is at the end of the day, you're selling to human beings.
Yeah.
And since the original, I don't know what they are, Cro Magnon man or whatever, were sitting around the campfire, like they were sharing information via story, right? It's just how we as human beings resonate and remember things. And I think that the story that you're telling is a lot of times as much what somebody's buying as the product.
Yeah.
And obviously, there are great technologists that are building completely innovative, changing things. But there's also a lot of companies that, to our point about the barrier of entry to marketing, the barrier of entry to product creation is a lot less than it was before as well too. A lot of times when you're thinking about like vertical software or different things, like they're taking tools and integrating things and everything like that, and then they're just telling a better story,
Right.
and that's why they're doing it, right? Like I've seen people that have gone all in on their product but didn't know how to tell a story. Like they had all the steak but none of the sizzle. And then
Right.
I've seen people that have had all sizzle, no steak, and sometimes they've been even more successful. I think obviously the perfect marriage is when you have both.
Right.
But I think just like conveying that like human element of here's a story. I understand you. I understand the problems that you're going through. I understand how this solution lets you sleep better at night, gives you more time with your kids. Like all of those elements are very human. And if I think if you can relate to them and tell those stories across all of the components of the business, you're going to be successful because I always say every interaction with a company is a brand building opportunity or a brand not destroying, but brand confusion opportunity, right? Like if you talk to me as our CMO and I describe York IE in one way, and then you talk to my colleague, my co-founder Mike, and he's our CTO, and he tells it in a different way, and then our CEO is telling other people a different thing. Like if we don't know our story, how the heck are you supposed to understand our story? And so but if I'm saying it and they're saying it, and then our sales guy's saying it, and then our customer success person is saying it, well, that now all of a sudden we're just building momentum. And people are like, I get it. They got this under control. I have more confidence in them. And that's where it begins to build momentum.
Yeah. I want to jump back a second to something you said a minute ago about your CTO, talking about minimum viable audience. Let's dig into that. What does that mean? How do you define that? And how do you determine what that is?
Yeah, and I think it's really an interesting one, particularly in the sort of evolution of company building that we're seeing right now. If you go back even 3-4 years, right, particularly like in the tech world, it was like,
Ages.
yeah, but it was like the mantra was like, grow at all cost. You can't light money fast enough on fire because we want to be a decacorn or a bust.
Exactly.
Right. And then there became a bit of a tech correcting, and there was the realization that maybe a $3 million revenue company wasn't worth $3 billion.
Who knew?
Shocking to me. Like an ice cream truck doesn't need $2 million of investment. But now you're seeing like this like movement, particularly like with us who do a lot of seed investment. We see founders taking two perspectives. One, which is, yeah, like, oh, no, I'm going traditional venture. I'm going to raise my seed. I think I'm in a market creating category. I think I need to really claim a lot of real estate. I'm going to go Series A and then B and then really go for it. Where others are saying like, you know what? I'm going to raise a little bit more here in the seed. There's a term going around called seed strapping, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like bootstrapping, but with like technology, you're going to need some investment.
Sure.
And then I'm going to use that seed investment to get me to profitability. And then from there, I'm going to have options. And I say that related to your point, because if you're thinking about, and this is another novel idea, company building through customer funding,
I love that.
that's where it's okay, great. Like I need to have a certain level of audience to sell my product to it in the phase one. What does that look like? How big is it? You know what I mean? My product might not be like, say you're a platform that you want to have a lot of bells and whistles. You're like, okay, like what is the whistle that I can begin selling to somebody to get that momentum to unlock phase two, which is like the bell. And then who does that broaden the aperture of who I can sell to, and think about it in more of a door unlocking manner versus going completely horizontal from the first day. And I think that strategy and approach can be really valuable to creating an efficient go-to-market motion that allows you, particularly if you have fundraised responsibly, hey, this may only end up at a double. I may have only unlocked to phase two, but that's still a hell of an outcome.
Exactly.
And then it's great. I'm at a double. Can I unlock another door or two? And now all of a sudden it's a home run. Fantastic. I think that's really an exciting in a way that gives a lot of kind of opportunity and authority back to the founder to build the business the way they think is best.
That's smart. I like the analogy, the unlocking doors. I think of it as concentric circles. And so expanding out circles at a time, or like
Exactly.
a video game where you're moving up levels and you get a power up and now you're a different level.
You got to face Mike Tyson at the last level. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think that those are really good. And I love the idea of bootstrapping, seed strapping, because it gives options later on instead of raising crazy money. And there's some companies that need to do that.
Absolutely.
And I get that, but it's not every company, and there's not just one way to do it. And I love the idea of customer funding as well, because you're not only proving product market fit, you're getting those dollars in, and that funds the next round of growth, that next unlock.
Absolutely. And I've always felt that, to our point about like why the market-in approach is so important, is that like the most successful companies are that marriage of like they are accelerating as their market is expanding. There's nothing worse than like you're accelerating as like your market is becoming commoditized, like misalignment. And that's where
Yes.
my feeling is, again, a startup is successful within its ecosystem, and its ecosystem is founders, operators, investors, advisors, vendors. Like it's when there's misalignment between what is being built in those different kind of constituents is when companies get in trouble. But when there's alignment and everybody's rowing in the same direction and you understand what kind of company you're building. And I think honestly, like sometimes like the momentum of of everything, you forget that, or you don't even know exactly what you're building. And I think taking that moment to like evaluate and understand what are we doing, conveying that to all of those different sort of ecosystem stakeholders, and then all row in the same direction, that's when you become really a powerful sort of organization.
Yeah. What's one big go-to-market mistake that keeps popping up, and how should founders reframe it?
So I'm really into right now this term that we've been just starting to use, which is like on the engineering side, like everybody understands technical debt.
Yes.
Like you do stuff in the early days that you have to then compensate for in the future.
Been
And,
there many times.
but that exists on the go-to-market side as
Of
well too.
course.
Right? Like we're referring to it as like your RevOps debt, right? Like you've
Yeah.
put these systems in place in the beginning, whether it being a spreadsheet, whether it being the person that no longer there is the one that implemented your CRM. And there are these barriers that you never actually reconcile. You just put more band-aids and duct tape on, and then you wonder then why aren't we like scaling as efficiently and growing as smoothly as we can? And there's this like inflection moment where, and it's funny too, because I said at the beginning, like at the beginning, the startup and the founder are synonymous. Then there comes that moment where you have to transition out of founder-led sales into building a go-to-market machine. And that creates its whole set of like hiccups and challenges and everything like that. But that's the good inflection point to take the like audit of the go-to-market motion and sometimes even rip it down to its studs and rebuild and improve so that you can take a step backwards to take 5 steps forward,
Yeah.
as opposed to always having that debt that you're living with and operating with like a hand behind your back.
And when you get to that point, what foundational pieces should be in place before you start hiring a sales team or really scaling up demand gen?
That's a great question. And I think it varies for everybody. But I would say at that point, like you have to know the process and the playbooks and what you want to do, right? And that's like a lot of experimentation. And like even at my company, we have done a lot of experiments. And again, it's a process that like, it's always like in retrospect, you say, oh yeah, like, of course we should have measured this. And of course we should know where I put $1 in to get $2 out. But that's where the difference between like builders and then ultimately like accelerators exists, right? First, you have to do something. And
Right.
like just the actual act of doing, right? I'm reading the 5 a.m. Club right now by Robin Sharma.
Sure.
And there's just a great line, which is like the simplest of implementations is better than is 1,000 times better than the best of like ideas.
Yes.
And so it's like, you got to try something. It's okay, great. We tried something. Now we got to try a second thing to see if that's better. Okay, great. Now we've tried 2 things, and now we have to make sure that we have the systems in place to measure them. And now that we're measuring them, we can make a more informed decision on, okay, what should we be doing more of, or what should we not be doing? And then, okay, great. Like again, then at some point, it's great. We understand what we need to do. Let's go now hire more people to do it. And I think what happens, especially on the go-to-market side, I just had a great conversation with a recruiter, and she was talking about like on her side of it, the major problem she sees is the over-hiring on that first
Mm.
sort of GTM hire, right? Like you
Right.
get dazzled by the resume, and then it's actually like by the point they have the resume that dazzles you, they no longer want to build the thing. They want it to be like operating. And so she said, like, one of the best people to hire when you're getting that first go to market person is the hungry number 2.
Yes.
Like that person that's been there with that other person, seen it, has some experience, but is now hungry to build it themselves. And what you don't want is like you don't want to be at the building stage and then hire the optimizer, because that's where there's a lot of disconnect. And yeah, the builder may not ultimately be 2 years from now the person that can optimize and accelerate, but worry about that 2 years from now.
It's not the
Uh,
problem to solve today.
Correct. And it's like that's a champagne problem, means you're around in 2 years and doing well.
Right.
So worry about it then.
I love that champagne problem.
So
That's a
that's
good
what
one.
like, so I think it's understanding like having some of the foundational motions in place. You either know how you want to go and get leads. You have leads coming in. You have a baseline level of collateral so that this new kind of go-to-market leader has stuff to work with. And then you have some of the systems in place to begin to be able to evaluate how is the success going.
Ready to dominate your market and skyrocket your revenue? Dive into Small Fish Big Pond, delivering a world class business that swims circles around competitors. This book is packed with powerful marketing and leadership insights guaranteed to transform your business and operate world class. Small Fish Big Pond delivers proven strategies to sharpen your marketing message, deliver unmatched value to your clients, and guide your prospects' buying journey to one inevitable conclusion: that your company is the only solution for them. Inside, you'll find step by step frameworks and time tested growth principles to attract your ideal clients, convert them, and then turn them into your passionate brand ambassadors. Grab your copy today in print, ebook, or audio at smallfishbigpond.com or on Amazon. Plus, remember, every book sale supports charity. All profits go there. Always have, always will. So dive in and make a difference. As we're going to market, content and story, we already talked about that. Both of those play a really big role. You led content for Oracle's most visited blog, which is pretty awesome. How do SaaS companies punch above their weight with content strategy that supports both SEO and sales at the same time?
So it's really interesting that you say the word SEO too, because I don't know if you've seen like the graphic recently, like in say November of 2024, HubSpot's blog was getting like 10 million views a month.
Yeah.
And then as of February, that's 1 million views.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. Just right off a cliff.
Just because of like the implementation of chat, right? And like people searching for the answer via ChatGPT or Gemini and not actually
Right.
clicking on the search link. And so I was actually talking to Cass from our team who runs our marketing service, and I was like, "Is SEO dead?" And she was like the philosophy of SEO very much stands with that marketing stuff that we talked about. It's
Sure.
if you are thinking about your content in how do you help solve questions that your customers need answered, then you are already thinking about what your customers need. To our point about verbiage, you are talking to them in the language they understand. Then you can from there you can evolve their thinking, right? If you are just writing blog posts about your category that nobody is searching for or thinking about, you're not going to land.
Right.
If you are writing content that speaks to the way that they are thinking about it, and then in the process of that blog, you are moving them to your new way of thinking, you're going to be in a much more successful. And then the other thing is like, I think the number one marketing challenge that companies face is, and you see this reflected in society, I would say, is how fragmented our information gathering is.
Yes.
Like we all consume information through so many different channels. And so that
Right.
presents a problem to companies. And I think the problem that it presents mostly is I'll talk to somebody and they'll say, here's my marketing strategy. And all it is a bunch of different plans for different channels. Here's what I'm going to do on social. Here's what I'm going to do in blogs. Here's what I'm going to do with media. And I'll just say, like, where is the marketing strategy? Or where is
Right.
the content strategy? And that's why it's so important to start with the messaging. And from the messaging, develop, because you have now started as the market in and you understand the landscape, you are able to then create unique points of view. And then it's you take your unique point of view and then you put it out through the different channels so that you can reach your prospective customers wherever they're consuming information, but you're telling one story. Like it all bubbles
Right.
up. Like what you see a lot is we'll say something on social, we'll say something in the blog, we'll say something, and all you've done is introduce 12 different versions of yourself across 12 different channels, which creates that lack of sort of that brand building exercise. Whereas if you take the message and then you just distribute it through the different channels and the ways that people then consume it, it still bubbles up to that singular message. And then you're known for something, right?
Right.
And so I think that taking the message to channel, not channel to message, can be really helpful in actually building it. Because again, we love this concept called drumbeat marketing, which kind of originated from my past as a reporter. So I was a journalist in New Hampshire. I covered the New Hampshire primary, which is big into
Yes.
retail politics, right? And so I interviewed John Huntsman, who was the former governor of Utah, ambassador to China. He ran for president in 2016, which shows you how old I am. And he said, in New Hampshire, you have to shake someone's hand 10 times before they will consider voting for you, and
Wow.
then 10 more before they actually will. And that's the truth about messaging, is that like only when you are sick of saying it does it actually begin to resonate with anybody outside of your office, right? So if you've now said 12 different things across 12 different channels, good luck. Like
Right.
that's not landing. But if you said one thing and you've said it in a really interesting and compelling way across 12 different channels, you have a chance of it bubbling up and being able to repeat it. We did a sales call earlier this week, and the woman articulated back in one sentence how we've been positioning ourselves like in the last like 3 months. And I said, good, we finally got it. Like she got it. She said it back the way, right? Not differently, not a slight version of it, like exactly how I would have wanted her to say it. And that's really hard to do. But it's a lot more helpful when you just keep hammering them with it.
It is. And I think sometimes we can get tired of telling the same story over and over again. But we have to remember that it is usually the listener's first time ever hearing it. Even if they've heard it a few times before, it just hasn't stuck. And now they're like, oh, I didn't know that.
It's very funny. I took my 12-year-old son to a networking event, and I had a joke, and it landed the first time I said it. And then he goes, Dad, you just said the same joke 14 times. I said, yes, but I said it to 14 different people.
Right.
It's much easier to find new people and tell them the same joke than
The
come up
new
with 14
material.
different jokes that would
Yeah.
land. So that's very much the same with messaging.
Oh, that's really good. And just like you said earlier, if somebody talks to 3 different people in your company and they get 3 different stories, and I had this happen, 2 co-founders. So they were at a networking event, and I had no idea they were with the same company.
Yes, exactly.
And then I made the connection later. I'm like, what's up with that?
Yes.
But the same thing is true about our social. If somebody goes to LinkedIn and they see one version of the company, and they go to another platform and they see another one, then they go to read Twitter and they see another one, and then they hear a podcast and they see somebody else. They download a white paper and it's something else, and they go to the website and it's something else. It's confusing.
It is, and it's difficult. And I understand why that happens, right? Like you're changing things, you're doing this, you're evolving,
Right.
especially at an early stage company where you're just constantly iterating and evolving and
Testing.
everything like that. But again, like I go back to, I sat in the Bedford, New Hampshire Public Library in August of 2019, and I fleshed out the vision and mission of York IE. And everything possible in the world and as a company and how we're like doing these things has changed in the last 5
Yeah.
years. But that vision is still true. And that's what I hammered for many years. And that's still true. It still resonates. Everything else has refined and matured, but it's still true. And so that's why I do think that the hierarchy is so important, and to revisit that too,
Yeah.
even as you continue to evolve. And I think there's all sorts of different stages in a company where they're very natural for inflection moments to just reevaluate all of those things. Hey, let's take a look at this. Let's all agree upon it, and then let's put the pen down and let that be true for a period of a time, and then we'll revisit it when we hit that next milestone of inflection.
What do you think about founder brand? And is that a good metric, or is it a vanity metric? Or how can founders really leverage their voice and their network to drive credibility and community around their solution?
I am a huge proponent of personal brand. I think that you should be building your personal brand prior to, even if you never even wanted to be a founder, but if it's a gleam in your eye, start building the network, start building your brand, because everything is, and I think this is even more true in the digital age, right? Like we're moving into an age of like exponential noise. And so
Right.
how do you actually build a business and get credibility and validation? Like it's through network and relationship building. And so I guess let me couch what I'm going to say. I'm going to say I think it's very important to build a personal brand, irregardless of who you are. I think that it is very important to build an authentic personal brand.
So good. Yeah.
Like, I think if you're trying to be Mark Cuban or something like that, like, not going to work. I think that if you find something, and that's why, like, the level up of, like, the vision, like, if you find something that you're passionate about and are interested in and moves it, then share it, talk to people about it, put stuff on LinkedIn, go to meetups, be there, you're going to be super successful. And you are going to be consistent because it's more of an extension of your interests and who you are than some separate bucket that you're trying to just check off because you think you have to be an influencer. And then I would say find the vehicle that you're comfortable with. I am not like a great tweeter, so I don't really tweet, but like I have a newsletter. For some reason, I feel very comfortable in that format. And I've done 5 years of newsletters every single week because I enjoy it. You know what I mean? And I think that's the key, is to find it like, and I think a lot of times people think of the outcome more than the process. And they,
Right.
oh, I'm going to do a couple of LinkedIn posts. None of them go viral. And then they're, because it's not natural, it's not an extension of the things they want to be talking about anyway, then they stop. And then 6 months later, they go, crap, it would have been good to have kept doing this. And like a spin
Right.
up, and it's just like a cycle that continues, right? And that's where I do think some of the tools will be helpful to just help you with the production of some of that stuff,
Right.
as long as you have the ideas and insights.
That's good. And I like the idea, just a freedom to choose the medium. You don't have
Yeah.
to do it the way that somebody else does it. Picking your platform. If Twitter is it, then you can go all in.
Yep.
And if it's not, then don't do that. Pick something that really resonates with you authentically and that you can do and enjoy, because that makes it a whole lot easier to stay consistent. If it's something that you hate, don't start doing that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there used to be the feeling like, oh, I got to be on all of these things. And it's, to your point, like, just find one
Yeah.
and have fun with the process. That's one of the things that I tell my kids all of the time. I think it's like Nick Saban, the football coach, right? The process. If you
Yeah.
fall in love with the process, the outcomes will take care of themselves.
Yes.
But if you only care about the outcome and don't enjoy the grind, because let's be honest, like, it's a grind. Like, I've worked every single day for 5 years on York IE and still nobody knows about us, but more people do. And it's been fun and we've learned a lot, right? And so that's where it's, if you can get value out of the doing and appreciate that. And I would say that's so true of an entrepreneur.
Yes.
If you want to learn and test yourself and go beyond whatever limit you think you are, that you have, and show that you're more capable than you ever thought, then be an entrepreneur. If you want to get rich, a lot of other ways that are much easier
Yes.
and better to do that.
Oh, without a doubt. But it is, I wouldn't trade entrepreneurship for anything. I love it. And there's people like that. And there's others that they try it and they go, this is just not for me. And that's fine too.
I think that's, again, to our point of like inflection moments and just
Yeah.
asking yourself, right? I love David Goggins, and he's just saying, if you're running 100 miles and you're at mile 62 and it sucks, you better know why you're doing it, because you can't
Right.
lie to yourself at that moment. And that's true of this. Like, if you don't want to grind and you want to have nice work-life balance, like you want to be able to go to your kids' game every like Tuesday afternoon at 4:30, like those are wonderful priorities and things to choose. There's nothing wrong with that, like that, but just know the choices that you want to make, and
Right.
that then you'll be happier with the process of doing it. And I think that is very different for everybody. And I think one of the things you realize too is that like companies change, and not
Yes.
every stage of companies for people at that stage, and they may not even like it, and like people will leave, and as a founder, don't take that personally. It's nothing against you. You may have to like transition somebody out. It's not personal against them. It's just the right, like the dynamics of these things are ever evolving. And I think
Right.
having creating a culture for yourself and then with others of honesty and having those conversations is the best way to be, aligned.
One of the things that you said was celebrating people who chase their dreams is worthwhile use of time. And I really appreciate that. How do founders stay grounded while chasing growth in chaotic markets?
I think that being an entrepreneur is an extremely humbling process. And
Yeah.
so there shouldn't be too much difficulty. But like, I also think like it is the balance of the pride you take in building something, right? With also knowing Steve Jobs got pushed out of Apple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not, I think it's like having some of that balance and all of those different things. And I think a lot of popular media will make you think like you have to do one thing, those things. And I think just realizing you get into entrepreneurship because you are not just okay with the status quo. You want to have an impact, you want to do things. And so then make sure that it's your journey and not just the journey that like you think it should be or that other people think you should be doing as well
Yeah.
too, right? So
That's good. What would your advice be to founders who still think of marketing as promotion or as a department and not a strategic engine?
yeah, I like it's funny we just did an all hands meeting and we have a very big part of our team that does service delivery. And we were just talking about some of the different upsells that we've had have been with clients that like really liked us and expanded or recommended us to somebody else. And I said, key takeaway here, every one of you on the service delivery is the most important part of our sales team. Right. And so it's
Very cool.
like everybody in the company is in marketing.
Yes.
Everybody in the company is brand building, right? Like when they talk to your BDR, the way that they talk about you, are they pushy and annoying? Or are they thoughtful, asking really inquisitive questions and providing free value? That's marketing, right? I've talked to many a founder that said, "Oh, I do marketing at 4:30 p.m. on Friday." Then no, not
Right.
like you may think you may be working on your blog at 4:30 on Friday afternoon, but like you are doing marketing in everything that is being done, as is everybody else. So I think it's really important foundational part of the core existence of the business is the brand. And then, of course, yeah, there's obviously marketing channels and different things like that. And it's good
Sure.
to have ownership of those different things. And it can be very difficult for the founder to be the lone marketing person because of how many other things that are on the plate. And that's really a nice thing to begin to be able to delegate to other people. But the core brand and identity of the company should be something that is embraced and understood, to our point about messaging and the vision and the mission. Like everybody should be able to understand, what the company's trying to accomplish and then go evangelize that out in the market.
I like it. Where can people learn more about you and about York IE online?
Absolutely. So our website is called york.ie. And I'm on LinkedIn at Adam Coughlin. And again, we help technology companies grow. We do that through investment. We're an early stage, exclusively B2B software investor. And then we do it through advisory services where we're helping with operational execution across R&D, go-to-market, and G&A, right? Like our feeling is like entrepreneurs are great. They know what they want to do and where they want to go. They just sometimes need help getting there. And I think in this modern world where a lot of companies are remote, they're using different vendors and offshore. There's a lot of flexibility in how you build your company. And we love rolling up our sleeves and helping companies get there. To your
Outstanding.
point, like our entire life is how we decide to fill our day.
Yes.
And I really think, and I just get so excited about the challenge of building something. And I love entrepreneurs that have the risk and the gusto to try to build something. And I just think it's a super meaningful way to fill your days. And so I don't like the statistics that talk about how many startups fail. I would love to impact that. And because impacting that means somebody is fulfilling their dream. It means somebody is hiring people. It means that they are impacting their community, probably giving back to their community, making the world better one company at a time. And any way we can do that, we're here to help.
Awesome. We'll make sure and link all of that in the show notes and encourage people to reach out to you. It's such a great conversation, Adam. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Thank you for having and thank you for doing what you're doing, right? Like everybody like needs help and even just sometimes a little bit of encouragement and support. And so being able to have shows like this to listen to and get yourself fired up can be the difference. So thank you.
Thanks again, Adam, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. You can learn more about Adam and about York at york.ie. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. Lots of resources over there for you. That is at Champion Leadership on YouTube. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with someone who is a mover and shaker in your network. Who would that be? I bet you got someone in mind right now. Everyone who shares this week gets a donut so motivational it whispers affirmations with every bite. At the little donut hole saying things like, dude, you're crushing it. Or you put the H in hustle, man. And in our next episode, how do you turn data into predictive growth? Iran Frendinger, co-founder and CTO of Voyantis, joins us to break down how AI is reshaping growth marketing, user value forecasting, and why the smartest companies are betting big on predictive analytics. And then 1 week from today, what if you could know exactly what your website visitors want before they even tell you? We'll sit down with Chris Daly, a digital marketing entrepreneur and neuromarketer, to dive into psychology based testing and how companies are using it to massively boost website profitability. I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.